Hi guys, happy Tuesday. I really wish I could be there today. However, I am still under the weather. So I will be doing a virtual lesson. For the purpose of today's video, I will use period 4 as my model of Schoology folders. And every folder is the same unless you're one of my virtual students. So let's get into it. Week of September 13th through 17th, Monday, yesterday, my in-person students, you guys should have, if you look on today's agenda, read for 10 minutes and completed the comprehension questions in the Savvis textbook for two kinds. If you're a virtual student, your job yesterday was to look in your email of the information I gave you about how to log into your FAST test and complete it. You need to complete it by tonight because we are cut off from the FAST testing by the end of the week. And so here's a little tutorial. It'll look like this when you log into fastbridgelearning.org. Username and password is in the email I gave you. You need to scroll down. This is a sample screen. Scroll down to where it says more tests in blue down here. And then look for the apple with the book. So that's how you get to the test if you are one of my online learners. Okay, let's get to today's agenda, which is Tuesday. You guys should have already read and did the quizzes activity, which is up here. Notice for the quizzes activity, some questions you had to answer just with your own knowledge. Some requires you to read the lesson slides and then answer. It's not timed, so it's just seeing how accurate of results you can get based off what we've read. So please do not rush through it. But a lot of you, I'm sure, finished already. So then you can go to Wednesday's lesson, which I'm really going to get into. All right. So Wednesday's lesson, you'll start tomorrow with independent reading, and then you're going to continue working on your evidence log. We haven't really dove into this since last week, which is in the Friday 9-3 folder. Or you could just look in your Google Drive and search evidence log. So you're watching the video on how to do this right now, but you're going to complete your evidence log for two kinds. We're going to do the first one together, and then I'm going to let you do the other two on Wednesday. So in order to search for your evidence log, we're going to go to the Friday 9-3 folder. So let's back out. 9-3, that would be the end of this week in yellow. Okay. So go ahead and pause this video and go into Schoology under Friday 9-3 and get your evidence log. Go ahead and pause. Okay, once you click on your evidence log, open it up again. We did the first one together when we read the story Grounded, okay? And this side should be filled out for you guys. Mine is just a template version, so it's not filled out right now. But remember, I filled in the text evidence for you with quotes from the story, and we're answering this question all the time in our heads. What can one generation learn from another? So in your first text with Grounded, you have text written there for the answer of how the text evidence answers that question. And then any additional notes that we wanted were off to the side, which I don't think we did any. So today we're going to do this for our second text. So you're going to have to pause the video and do this with me and then unpause and watch, okay? So go ahead and in the second area, we're going to type in the title, which is Two Kinds by Amy Tan, okay? What I want you to do though is let's flip-flop these boxes. It just makes life easier. So what I would suggest doing is just Control X, okay, delete this, we can type that in, and then Control V. And then write text evidence on this side. It just makes life easier if we do text evidence here, the connection to the prompt here, and additional notes or reflection. Make sure you add that, additional notes or reflection. So pause this video, go ahead and make those changes. So it's text evidence here, connection to prompt here, additional notes. Take that time right now to pause. Okay, hopefully you're back with me. What we want to do is find a piece of text evidence. Text evidence, remember, is a direct quote from the text that is in quotation marks and has a page number. So we are not plagiarizing, but we are taking text and using it for our own good to prove a point. And what we're trying to prove is the answer to what one generation can learn from another. So we're going to have to go into our textbook. Yours is in the book. Mine right now is just online. So I'm going to have to search. There's many times where I feel like Amy learns from her mom, or mom learns from Amy, or even Amy learns from Mr. Chong, her piano teacher. But the first moment that I can think of is right after her piano recital on page 22. Go ahead and get to page 22. And, her mom was disappointed and she's expecting her mom to yell at her. She never did. It ends up into this big blowout of a fight where she wishes she never would have been born. She wishes she were dead. And then she even brings up the twins that her mother lost. And it was just like a big blow to her mom that she said all of this. And her mother was so disappointed. She just kind of like drifted. And it says on line 79, it was not only the disappointment my mother felt in me in the years that follow. I failed her so many times, each time asserting my own will, my right to fall short of expectations. I didn't get straight A's. I didn't become class president. I didn't get into Stanford. I dropped out of college. Okay, a lot of again and agains because she feels like a failure. For unlike my mother, I did not believe I could be anything I wanted to be. I could only be me. And for all those years, we never talked about the disaster. Okay, yada, 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 and it keeps going on and on. And then at the end, she goes, and even worse, I never asked her what frightened me the most. Why had she given up hope? Okay, and even before that, she says, I never found a way to ask her why she had hoped for something so large that failure was inevitable. That right there is also a tough question, as well as the one in line 82. Remember, a tough question doesn't have to have a question mark after it. And that's a really hard question for her to struggle with her whole childhood, even after her mother had passed away. Like, why all this time had her mom expected her to be this child prodigy, knowing that that is a very rare thing for a child to become or to be forced to do? Why did she want this perfection, knowing that it was inevitable or not able to happen? So that is a really big question. Sometimes our notice and notes can help us answer our question that goes with the unit, which is what can one generation learn from another? So I'm going to use that quote right here, but also kind of up here on line 80. I want to use that line that I have highlighted and the one from line 80. So I'm going to use both. So I hope I can, for my sake, copy this for unlike my mother. And I'm going to start with quotation marks to show that I'm getting it from the text. Oh, good. It did copy. But then I also want to add that second part of the quote, which was, so I never. And I'm going to copy that. Because they're not right next to each other, but they're within the same paragraph, we can do something called an ellipsis, which is a dot, 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 to show that, like, I'm not going to include all of it, but I'm going to include the next part of that paragraph, meaning that it continues. And then we put a quotation mark, parentheses, the page that we found it on, which, page 22, okay, 22, parentheses, period. And that's how we correctly insert textual evidence. Quotation, quote, quotation, parentheses, page, parentheses, period. So looking at that quote, and I put it in the wrong box. My bad. Whoopsies. Put it over here. Okay. Go ahead and take a moment to pause this video and copy this in your text evidence log. All right, you should be back with me. So now we have to answer the question, how does this quote answer what can one generation learn from another? So I'm going to have to take this piece of text evidence and little by little, I'm going to have to break it down to answer that question. So let's just help ourselves out by starting with a sentence starter. The narrator learns. And the narrator is Amy. So the narrator, Amy, learns. Well, if I look at this first part, for unlike my mother, I did not believe I could be anything I could want to be. What does that show she learns? Well, it shows that the narrator, Amy, learns she cannot live up to her mother's high expectations of perfection. So that's what she learns. But it also shows that her mother, she says, unlike my mother. So that means her mother does or did believe that Amy could be anything she wanted to be. So let's add that. So we're going to start with a transition word, however, comma. She realizes that her mother does believe she can be anything she sets her mind to, which is pretty important. Like we kind of talked about in class. I was lucky where my parents told me, you can be anything that you dream you want to be. Unlike my sister, who is kind of unrealistic. I think I told one class this. My sister, when she was growing up, said, I want to be a grandpa when I get older. And this was, of course, when she was like a toddler. Some things just won't actually ever work out. And it's a good chuckle. But, realistically, you can do whatever you set your mind to. There aren't limitations. If you can dream it, you can do it. And so she did have a parent who believed in her. She just was almost set up for failure because her parent expected perfection or nothing. So let's kind of analyze the next part where she says, so I never found a way to ask her why she had hoped for something so large that failure was inevitable. So again, this shows that I would say, unfortunately, Amy is struggling to understand why her mother wanted perfection. So we can start with unfortunately, or maybe we start with furthermore to add on to what we're saying. Furthermore, Amy struggles to understand why her mother wanted perfection from her as a child, knowing all along that wasn't reasonable. Right? It's not reasonable to expect perfection from someone or nothing at all. And that's where she felt like she was stuck between a rock and a hard spot, if you've ever heard that metaphor. All right, so that is what Amy learned. She can't live up to her mother's expectation, but she does realize her mother believes in her. But then she's still struggling to understand it's either perfection or nothing, right? So I'm going to add some additional notes in here of my reflection because I think deep down, Amy realizes how rough her mother's loss was before coming to America. And I think ultimately, like her loss, ultimately finding success is something Amy's mother thinks will make up for loss. And I think not even finding success, but finding success or having pride in what you do and having pride for her daughter is something she thinks is going to make up for her loss of her husband, her two twins, the other family members she lost, and the sacrifices she had to make all along the way. So I think secretly Amy understands. She just doesn't realize why she's still so hard on her. All right, so what you need to do for the other two boxes, okay, you don't need to do three. Other two boxes is you need to find two more quotes where you feel like Amy's learning from her mother or Mr. Chung, or maybe her mother's a moment where her mother reflects and learns from her. And it's not going to necessarily be cut out for you. You're going to have to read between the lines a little bit and then put in the answer to that question. How does it relate? How does your text evidence relate to what the narrator or what her mother is learning, right? So start like I did, the narrator learns, or maybe it's the mother learns, or in this scene, so-and-so learns. And then any notes, additional notes or reflection that you should add needs to go here. So what other things does this make you wonder? All right. So all you probably will get done today, or maybe even the start of, if this is Tuesday, you'll probably just get this video watched. Wednesday, you need to go in and add my example and do the pauses in this video to copy this into your log, as well as add 2 more pieces of evidence and finish this chart for 2 kinds. So that is due by the end of the day on Wednesday. But again, if you're watching this Tuesday, you're kind of getting ahead, which is great because it will take you the whole class period. I realize this was a long video. I hope it helped. And this will take place of a in class lesson on Wednesday. So watching this video is your lesson and your homework for Wednesday. Have a great rest of your afternoon, guys. Bye.